less than a half a mile south, and it's not the 19th anymore, it's all Democrat. So, you know, this is what Les is up against. I'd like to perhaps have Frank, he's been following Les around all day, give a little introduction.
Just so everybody knows, this is Les Marsden from Mariposa.
Hi, Les.
Nice to meet you.
I'd like to acknowledge Amanda Gutierrez, who I invited to come to this first time at the meeting. Hopefully she'll be back.
All right, man.
We'll be gentle.
Just a quick overview of the kind of day Les has had. So what, you left Mariposa at 8?
7:45.
7:45. Showed up the morning mayor at over in McHenry at 5 to 10 for a 10 to 11 interview. And I was out to the Two Rivers Saloon on 132 for a chat with Bill Lyons. Then back to Modesto, where we had a little bit of time, and I moved my truck over here, if you noticed. That truck sitting across from your house, but
Yeah, it was
I don't think it was vandalized.
We have unmarked vans, we think, with listening devices.
So,
Hey, it happened in Fresno.
2 o'clock to 3 o'clock interview at Modesto B. From Modesto B down to Turlock for an interview with the Turlock guys. And from Turlock over to a great interview with somebody on the right, Dave Diamond, on 1360. That went very well.
Oh my God.
Then a short break, and then over here. Here we
My
are.
gosh. Less is more.
He just did.
There you go.
And that's the kind of guy you need in Congress, right?
Less is more. That could be his.
That's actually his title in our group. He doesn't even know he's an officer in our group.
So with that,
I didn't read that.
turn it over to Les. Like I said, it's informal. He's going to say a few words about himself, then Q&A, and take it from there.
Thank you. I will stand briefly and then sit again because it has been such a long day. I hope you don't mind. Regarding less is more, imagine having to hear that since the age of 4.
Oh,
And then you can imagine why it's been banned from the campaign.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the sentiment. Thank you.
He did it.
all right.
And I would like to thank first Frank. Frank is my Stanislaus County campaign chair. And something that I like to make very, very clear, not necessarily to groups such as yourselves, but to those on the right, because after all, this is a very, very red district, as you know. My campaign manager is a Republican.
Really?
Yeah, he's a Republican because I made him be a Republican. He actually was a lapsed Republican who was sick of the Republican Party and registered as an independent years ago. And I said, no, you got to get back to being a registered Republican so I can go speak to Republican and farm groups and say, guess what, my campaign manager is a Republican. So he did that for me. You may know him. His name is Dr. Peter DeCaro, and he is the just stepped down chair of communications at CSU Stand. And he's doing a wonderful job. He hasn't been on the circuit for a little while because he's had his right knee replaced. But all that said, thank you for having me here tonight. I've, of course, met some of you prior to this evening, and I'm glad to meet all of you this evening. And I would like to give you a very brief overview of who I am, why I am doing this, and what it's all about. And then I would love to take your questions. Unlike virtually everybody else who is in this race now on the right, I was actually born in this district, I actually grew up in this district, and I actually live in this district now. So, you know, it's wonderful.
Here's a great slogan, right? Wingers are carpetbaggers.
And the interesting thing was, and I didn't expect any of you to be listening to the Dave Diamond show tonight, but Dave made that point over and over and over, and he is enraged. He kept telling me, maybe, I don't recall if he ever said this on the air, but in commercial breaks, he said, I'm not a Republican. I'm really pissed at the Republicans, and they're a bunch of carpetbaggers, and that's one of my big things. I am so pissed at all the Republicans because they're carpetbaggers in this district. I said, well, that's very nice. And I made sure that he knew over and over and over that I'm not carpetbagging, and that got his ears perked up a little bit. So I do feel that. And it ties hand in hand with the fact that unlike all of those Republicans who are scrambling to try to get the nomination on their side, I'm not a career politician. I believe very much in what Jefferson and the founders said about the citizen representative. I have never run for an elected office before. I have appointed offices. I'm currently Mariposa County Planning Commissioner, and I have a lot of different titles that I can tell you about if you're bored. But I have never run for an office before. I have never run in this district before, even though I was asked to do so many cycles by Democrats. as a little bit of background, yeah, I was born in Fresno, I was raised in Fresno. My family, my mother's side, came from an agricultural background. I am Armenian. Both sets of grandparents came to the Central Valley about 1900, and my mother's side settled in Fowler, where they ranched a small family farm. And that is what ag should be all about to me. I'm a great opponent of all of the corporate ag that is taking over food production in this nation and doing a terrible job at it. So I grew up with a great, profound respect for agriculture and for the family farm. And that is something that I'm trying to make very clear to all. Guess what? Guess where Josh was? What? How long ago?
Last Monday.
Last Monday. Josh was at my house fixing my Sears Kenmore refrigerator. And it was really, really interesting because he called me to get directions and all that. And we were talking, and then he said, can I ask you something? And I said, yeah. And he said, are you Les? And I said, yeah. He said, and you're running for Congress? And I thought, okay, either it's going to be a Republican who wants to kill me and break the refrigerator, and then he immediately identified himself as one of the good guys, and I so appreciate the fact that you're here tonight, and the refrigerator is running beautifully. And so I grew up in the district. I kind of cut my teeth at the age of 15 on politics in 1972, when I saw what was happening in the Nixon White House. I had been, for a kid, fairly apolitical up to that point, but I was really, really irritated by what I saw in the Nixon White House. And so I began to get out there as a progressive Democrat at the age of 15. I walked precincts for McGovern. I wanted to see the Vietnamese War ended then. Period. And that was the beginning of my growth as a Democrat. Over the years, I have always maintained that philosophy, and I am basically, if I had to put my fingers on it anywhere socially, I am about as progressive as you could possibly hope to get. As somebody who cares about what happens with money in this country, I am a fiscal conservative. It's hard to say that word because it's taken on a really bad connotation, but after all, let's remember what it means to conserve, to save, to do the right thing. And that's why, conservation is the word that we use for our natural resources, and it should be used to apply in a good sense. Unfortunately, conservatives have, just as they have spoiled the word liberal, they've also ruined the word conservative. I believe in fiscal conservatism, and I really do truly believe that we've got to get back to the responsibility that was shown during the Clinton years, in which that's the last time this country had a budget surplus. It's the last time that we had a pay-as-you-go theory of paying for what we do as a government. Now I'm jumping around all over the place, but when I was 4, I decided for a profession I wanted to be an actor when I grew up. And I was very, very fortunate to be. Come here, you can sit by me. What's your name? What is it? I love that name. That's absolutely beautiful. How appropriate, because you're absolutely beautiful too. Have I embarrassed her?
No.
I decided I wanted to be an actor. And I was one of those rare, weird people who actually was able to pull that off. And I had a very successful career as an actor, primarily on stage in New York and London for about 20 years. And my wife and I lived on the East Coast for all that time. And in 1999, while I was starring in a show at the Arena Stage in, of all places, Washington, D.C., I had a split-second encounter with a misset stage piece and became disabled in that moment. My left Achilles tendon was permanently demolished and became dead. It's now necrotic. And so, yeah, I had my encounters with health care, with health insurance in this country. But it took about 2 years to get all the medical and legal ramifications worked out. And then by 2001, at the age of 44, we realized that I really couldn't perform anymore. And I would retire. We could afford for me to retire. My wife didn't have to work. Our son was then 4 years old. And we thought of all of the places in the world that we had been to and all the places that we loved, where would we want to spend the rest of our lives? And it just kept coming back to the area around Yosemite. We were married in Yosemite Valley in 1985. Last week we celebrated our 25th anniversary. And so it